The house was built in 1741 by Captain William Ranney, and we learned through research that he was in the slave trade in the West Indies, and that he also kept slaves in the house, anywhere between 4 to 6 at any given time. The house was in the Ranney family for about 50 years before it was the Ranneys married into the Butler family, and the house stayed in those two families until about 1840, when it was sold to an outside party. I suspect at that time, or right before the sale, is when they buried the headstones in the backyard, because when the Corville family bought the house in 1959, they had a septic system put in, and during the excavation they found headstones in the backyard that had been laid horizontally and buried about 2 to 3 feet below the surface. The homeowners lived in the house since 1959, and there wasn't much paranormal activity that they could really identify. Occasionally a door would open or close. Sometimes something would move, but they attributed it mostly to just living in an old house. A few years ago, Marc had a tenant in an apartment in the house who was involved in a type of activity, black magic, trying to stir up or contact darker forces that exist in another reality, and apparently it was successful. The homeowner returned after a vacation and found that the tenant was gone, and that from then on there seemed to be a great deal of paranormal activity in the house. Doors would open and close and things would move around. They would hear voices and bits and pieces of conversation. He became concerned, obviously, that something was going on in the house, and tried his hand at recording these voices on his BlackBerry, at a voice notes recorder, and was successful in capturing several hundred voices and saying different things, sometimes in direct response to questions that he would ask. Some of the voices were almost affectionate towards him, some of the female voices, and some of the other voices were threatened to kill him, threatened to give him cancer. He did have cancer, as a matter of fact, and is in recovery right now as I speak. His concern, though, grew because it seemed like the evil voices, the threatening voices, were becoming more and more numerous, and that's when he called me and Ghosts of New England Research Society to come and investigate his home and see if we could confirm some of the things that he was experiencing, and also gather some evidence to let him know exactly what was going on in this house. During our investigation, we had our team, which consisted of Kellie, Gilbert, Karen, Hollis, and myself, and our cameraman, Darrell Lucas, in the attic of the house. And we did an EVP session, during which we heard some noises, but weren't able to confirm really that they were paranormal. We did notice that a heavy bag, which is something in boxer shoes, which hanging up in the attic, was swinging back and forth, and we tried to recreate that. It's possible it was just moving because of drafts or wind, some kind of vibration in the house, and we didn't believe really that it was paranormal. On moving into another room where there had been an actual voodoo symbol found of a voodoo character called Pappa, Karen asked if there was a spirit there by the name of Becky, because that is one of the voices that the homeowner had captured at one point. And when she asked, "Is Becky here?" we heard on a recording, "No." Also, Kellie, our camera person, was having trouble with the camera.
To describe a decoding machine before.
It just did processing, low battery, and died.
Really?
Yeah. Before, we had a full battery and it was at like a quarter most of the time up here. But yeah, that just finished.
We moved down into the second floor bedroom where the homeowner had reported that someone, a spirit, in fact, full body apparition that he and his wife had both seen, had been tampering with her jewelry at one point and rustling around in it and making noise at night. They'd witnessed this on a few occasions. Marc and his wife woke up one night, standing right here, rustling through his jewelry, was a woman in like late 18th century dress. And she turned and looked at them and then turned and walked through that door and disappeared.
What's through the door?
Closet. Although I think that probably originally it was, yeah, this is, the house was all connected. There's an apartment over there now, but this is what woke him up. They heard this and it woke him up. Can you make that noise too? We tried to contact that spirit, and Karen believes that she was able to get some response on a psychic level. We weren't able to pick up anything on an audio, with audio equipment at the time. We then moved into the basement and with the homeowner and asked a series of questions. Because the previous time we had been there, we had asked if a child had been in an old disused coal bin and gotten their hands dirty, because we had found the handprints of a child in the upstairs on some woodwork. And at that time, the response was either no or a laugh. It's hard to identify exactly what it is, but it's clearly a response to that question.
This really, if you think about it, is kind of another, we get a lot of water flow through the wall.
Now this time Karen was able to contact a spirit by the name of Becky and channel her information to us. A young girl who was about 5 years old, and that her mother had become very ill, and her father had taken her to the doctor. And her mother never came back, and Becky was still waiting for her mother after all these years to come back. Didn't realize that her mother had probably passed away. Becky, as far as she knew, was still staying with her aunt. The interesting thing about this was that the homeowner had recorded EVP sessions with the name Becky fairly recently, but hadn't told anyone, certainly hadn't told us, that he had captured the name Becky.
Do you know why she went away?
She was sick and my daddy took her to the doctor.
Did you get sick too?
No. She's telling me she stayed with her aunt. I just keep hearing her. She stayed with her aunt or something.
Becky, do you go to school?
Are you dead?
I don't think so, silly.
Is your dad still here?
No, but my aunt is. She lives upstairs.
What's her name? Aunt what?
This doesn't make sense to me. I thought I'd heard her say, like, it almost sounds like Carol or C.
So we look at that as a possible confirmation that there may have been some contact there with our psychic. All right, so the second part of the investigation, we had a different crew come in, and it was Pat Murphy, Tom Hummel, and Tony Pappa, along with myself, Kurt Knapp, and Darrell Lucas on the camera. We went immediately to the attic, and there was a crawl space near the attic where the homeowner claimed that he had gotten quite a bit of electronic voice phenomena, felt a presence there. So Pat asked a series of questions in the crawl space, and one of the last things he said was, to show us you're here, can you move that bag in the other room of the attic? Give it a really good shove. And he asked a few more questions after that, and we proceeded down the hallway back towards the other part of the attic, almost forgetting that he had asked that question. There was the bag swinging back and forth like a pendulum, maybe 6 inches or so on each side of the arc, which is really startling because there's no way that that could have possibly happened through air current, house vibration. We suspect that that was some genuine paranormal activity. We tried our best to recreate that. We stopped the bag, we shook the rafters, we stomped on the floor, we did a number of things like that, and we're not able to move the bag or have it move like that. We then went through the rest of the attic, asked some more questions, and then proceeded directly down to the basement. And Pat set up a still camera and took some pictures of the walls of the cellar and was able to capture what appears to be shadow figures. Shadows, of course, are always open to question on what they really are. We tried our best to recreate the circumstances with available lighting on the cameras, just in case someone had been behind Pat, and we were unable to. So we kind of leave that as an open question what that was, although one of the pictures is pretty startling in itself, as you can see here. In conclusion, I'd like to say that I believe that there is genuine paranormal activity in the house. It's hard to say on what level. I think that the homeowner himself seems to be an antenna for this. He seems to be sensitive, empath, whatever you'd like to call it. The spirits in the house have identified him as someone that they can communicate with, and he is willing to communicate with them. Although I kind of worry about his health and his safety, because it is a known fact that psychics who experience a lot of that sort of activity do suffer health problems. I mean, they're taking on the troubles and the emotions of any given number of spirits or entities, and sometimes not even knowing really what they're dealing with. So in that case, Karen, our psychic, is teaching him how to control his gift, to be able to shut it off when he wants to take a break from it, to say that today I'm not going to I'm not going to listen to this. I'm not going to allow them to communicate with me. That I just need a break, a mental break from this, a vacation. And also through his religion, he's a very religious man, through prayer and even exercise, I think that he is learning to kind of move above this, to deal with it, to be able to live there still, but not let it affect him, and certainly not let it affect his health or his mental well-being.